You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday of getting back at you.
We're living in a very dangerous time right now, and liberalism has lost their cotton-picking mind.
The Trump folks, if they found out how we knew what we knew about the Trump staff's dealing with Russians, that they would try to compromise those sources and methods.
Nobody ever said anything about resisting Obama. They went at him on legitimate arguments.
I really do believe that much of what you saw coming out of Trump's mouth was a play from Putin's playbook.
Welcome to the Abolitionists Round Table, your all-access pass to exposing fake news, the resistance, and Barack Obama's shadow government undermining American progress. Be a part of the conversation at 734-822-1600. And now, your all-American hosts, Del Marsh and Phil Stargell.
And good morning. This is Phil Stargell of the Abolitionist Round Table of Michigan. And I'm sitting in this morning for Del Marsh. Del Marsh is supposed to be hosting the show this morning, but there's seemed to be a little bit of a problem on the freeways this morning. And Dale got caught up in a little bit of it, so he'll be in just a minute. But in the meantime, I'm gonna start the show and give you some of my insight on what's been happening here lately. And as the host instead of as commentator, and that's always good fun. First of all, in the news, we've had quite a bit of intrigue going on out of the White House with the House of Representatives, with President Trump going over the Speaker of the House and the Senate Majority Leader and working with Nancy Pelosi and Chucky the Smuck Schumer. Now, in my estimation, he's playing with fire, but I guess this was inevitable, because Paul Ryan is, in my estimation, he's probably on this issue of immigration. He's probably on the same side as Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi in the first place. But it's just a thing about they've turned this immigration thing into, guess what? A term of racism, as always. I mean, everything always boils down to racism. But if you look at the situation and you be honest, the Democrats are on the side that they're always on, the side of racism. They are the racists. They are the party of racists. And over the next couple of months, I'm gonna prove that to people through my writings and through my commentaries and through my maybe looking into this thing on a length, maybe write a book about it, because they have hoodwinked the American people. The Democrat Party has been able to hoodwink the American people into believing that they are the party of little people. They are the party of minorities. They are the party of this. They are the party of racists. They are the party that patented the form of government that we have now, which is statist. It's almost totalitarian status. And I've one of the things that can bear out what I'm telling you this morning is that there is a move going to remove monuments and statues of heroes of the Confederacy in the Civil War. And I say to you that they are the object of quite a bit of irrational thought. I mean, those guys only carried out the orders of the politicians. The politicians were the people that implemented and put up the policy that these generals carried out. Now, I believe one or two people were the object of this witch hunt to tear down the racists. And believe me, the racism that we are witnessing today is absolutely nothing more than a disagreement about the fairness of laws. In the case of the racism that was prevalent after the Civil War, up until 1964, was the racism of Jim Crow. And it not only was in all of the South, it was in some of the border states, Jim Crow laws. And instrumental in those laws was, guess who? The Democrat Party. People like Pitchfork, Ben Tillman. Some of the things that he said, if it were said today, you would understand exactly what racism is. And if I'm Dale isn't here, I'm going to give you some examples of things that were said and done by Pitchfork and his ilk. And the things that we see today, they call racism, is nothing more than two neighbors leaning over the backyard fence and having an argument over boundaries of land. This stuff that they call racism is just somebody in the Democrats' Party idea of how to manipulate terms and phrases to make them out to be something that is akin to lynching somebody from a tree. It's like the difference between the moon and the sun. It's night and day. This stuff that we witness today, somebody saying that a statue in a park, if my kids have to walk past that statue, then that's going to have some kind of effect on that kid. It'll have some effect on him if he's ignorant to what that statue was put there for. If he's ignorant of what the person actually stood for, that they put that statue there. One of the things that they talk about as being racist is the idea that if I walk past you and don't back in the days of slavery, black people had to not look them directly in the eye and things like that. That was racism, to walk past a statue, an inanimate object. How would that be? What effect would that have on anybody? Unless you knew the truth about that man's past that they put up there. Now, one of the things that people like Pitchfork, Ben Tillman did was they said exactly what they intended to do, and they did it. They said things like, we use fraud, we use violence, we used all of the things of the tools of trade to keep black people from voting. And they didn't use black people either. But the thing about it was, these people did things and they carried out things, and that was for strictly one thing: to inhibit the progress, inhibit the education, and inhibit the peaceful existence of a whole race of people. And they were the lawmakers. Ben Tillman was a governor. He was a senator. The things that he said and did was no doubt in anybody's mind what his intent was. Today we have people that make a mistake And we have a whole group of people saying that he did it because the person, for no other reason than the person being a person that was black, because of his color. And people make mistakes all the time. But anybody that is in authority and happens to be white, if they make that mistake on a person that is black, it is going to be charged with racism. And these people that are saying, again, the charges of racism are like charges of between difference of charges it's the same as the difference between day and night. There is no reason for everybody to be getting all upset because somebody makes a mistake. And then they try to turn around and say it's all because that person was either a person of authority in the army or in the police force, or guess what? He was a Republican. How do you differentiate between a person that happens to be white and happens to be a Republican, but he's automatically a racist because he differs in opinion from you? But a person that has all the same characteristics, being white, being a Democrat, all of a sudden he's not a racist because he might differ with your opinion because you are both of the same party. So black people have this very, very uninformed notion that there was at some point in history where the two parties had a different outlook on a thing. But they'll tell you that after the Civil War, and Reconstruction, that black people were able to be voted into office in the Congress, and numerous state representatives and state senators were elected in the South. And all of a sudden, they were not allowed to take those positions after about 10 years of Reconstruction. So the thing that they say is that there was a switch of philosophies, a switch of parties. I don't know exactly how this switch is supposed to come about, but all of a sudden, just because there was a civil rights law passed by the Democrats, that all of a sudden Democrats became what the Republicans used to be under Reconstruction, and the Republicans became what the Democrats were. And now that doesn't hold water, but then they tell you that, to look at the proof of it, most of the offices in the South are being held today by Republican candidates. Well, that's just been in the last 10 or 15 years. For the almost 100 years after Reconstruction, every office in the South was held by Democrats. And the way that those offices were being held and was through fraud, through rigging the ballot boxes and all of that, until they got total control. They passed civil rights laws for white people. Jim Crow laws are civil rights laws for white people. And they were passed by Democrats because there was a very thriving Republican Party. There always was one in the South. If you listen to Democrats and if you listen to some of the black leaders that pushed this notion that there was a switch between the Democrats and the Republicans, they will tell you that, they never mentioned the fact that there was a robust Republican Party. These were the abolitionists, what we call ourselves, abolitionists, modern day abolitionists, because they have taken over the name conservative, and I do not feel comfortable calling myself a conservative because of the behavior of some of the people that call themselves Republican conservatives. So that's why You won't hear me use that term when it applies to me, because of the lie that is allowed to be maintained of this idea that there was some kind of a switch between Republican and Democrat. I still don't understand how they could have sold that, but I do understand better because of the fact that they got control of not only the political thing in the South, they got control of the education system in the North and the South. And the education system is the one that's pushing all of this nonsense. All of these ideas about the statues and monuments have to be torn down come directly out of our college institutions and the higher education and the education system. That's where all of this nonsense comes from. Instead of educating the students on the politicians that sent those generals to war, they are concentrating on telling you that the problem was after the war and the ideas that came about after the war. I'm going to do a few things on the telephone, and then I'm going to turn this show over to today's host, Dale March, who just came in. How you doing, Dale?
Go to the break, man. No, you're on the roll.
Okay. Yeah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get one or two of these calls off of here before the break. First of all, we're going to go to line one and Bruce. Good morning, Bruce. How you doing this morning?
Hey, good morning, Phil. That's a great monologue. I'll tell you. It's, you should be teaching at U of M. Either the Dearborn campus or Flint or the big house in Ann Arbor. But you're absolutely right about that. When we were talking on the air the other day, and you were brought up the word conservative and that type of thing, and we started kind of kicking around the word traditionalist.
Yes.
And one of the traditions of this country is a strong border.
Yes.
And strong immigration laws.
Exactly.
And to have the president of Mexico saying that Trump has ruined the dreams of 800,000 DACA children, a lot of whom are now in their 30s, this guy ought to look to his own house. Mexico, guys, is a rapidly failing state.
Yes,
you don't know who's in charge down there, the government or the drug gangs. And if they would concentrate, Phil, on making their country a better place to live, you wouldn't have 10% of the Mexican population now living north of the Rio Grande, would you?
No, you sure wouldn't. And the thing about it is this whole idea of everything being racist. I mean, here it is now. They're telling us that it is racism because we want to enforce our borders, our laws.
Yeah. Yeah, and this racism nonsense. I mean, there are people of Hispanic descent who come in all colors: white, black, red, that type of thing. So this whole thing on skin color it makes my skin crawl.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's great. But guess what though? The Democrats they have patented the idea of identity politics.
Right.
I've told you about the Curly effect. You know about the Curly effect, right?
Right, yeah, exactly. The guy up in Boston who,
all of their life. They turn around and look, Democrats have been at odds with every ethnic group in this country, and they have made laws against those ethnic groups and laws to protect them, to protect their turf. And then they turn around and use those bad laws to turn it on the Republicans to say that they're racist because they want to enforce constitutional laws. All of these civil rights laws are mirrors of the civil rights laws that the Democrat Party passed for themselves, like Jim Crow laws and the laws against the Irish. You remember those laws? You remember the laws
Irish
against the Chinese? Every ethnic group that's in this country, the Democrats have demonized them and then turned around and used their cause for their own political purposes.
Yeah, and you look at the bosses in the big cities. Boss Tweed in New York. you know, what's his name, Daley in Chicago,
Yes.
even Coleman Young,
Yeah.
who, by the way, bragged that he was the leading communist in the state of Michigan.
Yes.
That should have sent red flags up, a long time ago.
And let's
we may
make
not,
no
we may not
mistake.
have had, if that guy had never been put into office, we may not be looking at what's now little more than a war zone where the neighborhoods of this city are concerned. This is terrible what's going on here.
And make no
it's
mistake,
all because of the
all
philosophy of the
tactics,
Democrats.
all of those tactics that the Democrats use, they started out using that tactic against people in the Civil War. The Civil War, that's what the whole thing about the Civil War was. About what, state right? Okay, now you see what the Democrats are doing. They're using that same type of law to push this notion of sanctuary cities.
Yeah.
And now they want to, California is talking about sanctuary states. It's basically secession from the federal government. That's exactly what's going on here.
Yeah, and speaking of a political machine, did you see the other day in Chicago where Rahm Emanuel said that he was going to ban Trump from visiting Chicago? Now, wait a second. What are they going to do? Post the Chicago PD at the city limits? And what are they going to do? Arrest Trump?
It wouldn't. It wouldn't surprise me.
I hope this isn't being heard in Chicago because I don't want to give these people any ideas.
Well, you know what? We got to keep expanding this. We have got to alert the American people to exactly what the Democrat Party has done and what they're doing. And the best way to do it is take advantage of these people that want to snatch these statues down. And look, let's just educate the people behind those statues.
Yeah, exactly.
And the reason behind it.
Well, and the thing is, Phil, and one of the things that I try to point out in the book I wrote is the underlying theme is, you've got to remember what went before. You got to remember your history because that's the only way that you're going to prevent yourself from making the same kind of mistakes that are going to get you in an even deeper hole and an even deeper trouble. And the way we're looking at it right now, the Democrats and their fellow travelers in Black Lives Matter and Antifa and all these people are no better than the Taliban.
Right, exactly. Well, look, Bruce, I got to get to this call. I want to get to it before the break.
Okay, so, great. Hey, Phil, we'll talk to you later and knock him dead there, Del.
All right. Okay, we're going to go to line 2, and that's Scott from Saline. Good morning, Scott.
Hey, good morning. I just have a quick question for you. On the removal of statues, should Nathan Bedford Forrest have a statue or a school named after him?
I'm not familiar. You have to give me a little more information on him.
General Nathan Bedford Forrest was the Confederate general who wiped out the African-American folks and a whole city, and then he was the founder of the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh,
Could he have a statue or a school named after him in the South?
Well, I tell you what, we need to identify this guy.
Yes or no? Should he have a statue or should he not? Should he have a school or should he not?
Well, it's up. Let's identify. Let's put the information out there.
Yes, he was the founder of the Ku Klux Klan. He was a
but they don't. General. Do they have that on the statue?
Huh?
Do they have that on the statue?
No, the statue is of Nathan Bedford Forrest.
Yeah, I understand. But what I want to know is, what I'm saying to you is, let's leave these statues where they are and put the information on there, and then and then identify him as being a Democrat, which he was.
He was. You don't know anything about him, but you just said he's a Democrat. You just said
because I do know about him. There's so many of these guys that
you have no idea what he was, but you make that charge. Is that true? That's what you just said.
What's that?
You said that he was a Democrat. You don't know that. You don't know what he was other than he was.
Well, I know that there was a Republican Party in the South, and I know that the Republican Party worked to get the equal treatment and they were mostly abolitionists. The Democrat Party was the party that. Listen, hold on. You stay on the line. I want you to hold on the line. We're going to go to break. If you'd like to join the conversation, number 734-822-1600. We'll be right back after these messages.
You're listening to the Abolitionists Round Table with your hosts, Del and Phil. They're exposing the left's underground resistance while leading the charge in the fight for liberty. Join the conversation at 734-822-1600.
And we're back. And first of all, I want to say I'm glad that our caller held on to the line, because I want to ask him a couple of questions, because what he obviously thinks that that I was set up. I mean, I don't do that to callers. I don't do it to guests on this show. We have a dialogue with each other and a back and forth, and that's what I pride in, and because that's the only way we're going to ever get us in this country together enough where we can have a disagreement and come to a conclusion without me or the other party compromising their beliefs. My belief is that the Democrat Party is responsible for the divide that's in this country, and they keep it going and find things to do more and more every day. And so I would ask our caller, what makes you feel that you're compelled to defend that?
I'm not defending it. I'm asking. I'm not defending what the Democrats are doing. I'm asking historically, knowing what we know about Nathan Bedford Forrest, should he have a statue? Should he have elementary schools named after him? That's my question. I just want to know where you stand on the statue issue. It sounds like you don't think any of them should come down, no matter what the background of the person on that statue is. If that's the case, you can just say so.
What I suggest is that when people decide that they want to take those statues down, that they take it down from an informed position, not just the fact that he owned slaves, or he did this or he did that. Okay, let's put that information out there and let the voters decide if you're going to use that forum to do it. If you're going to say we're going to let the people decide whether to take them down, and they're not educated enough, they're going at it like a vigilante committee, just like the Democrats used to do in the days of Jim Crow and in slavery.
Oh, okay. So I'm educating you and your audience on Nathan Bedford Forrest, who founded the Ku Klux Klan, committed the Fort Pillow massacre, where Union soldiers had surrendered his troops to kill them and massacre the ones who had surrendered. There are statues to him in Tennessee and schools named after him in the South. Please just tell me, does he deserve a statue? Does he deserve schools named after him?
Of course, I would say that he doesn't deserve one, but he's got one.
Okay. So should it
so
stay?
What about the people? Because he never achieved office, did he?
He never achieved office.
Okay. What about the people that he colluded with, as the term goes today? What about those people that he colluded with, that he influenced to do the things that they did, to pass the laws? He couldn't pass those laws.
I don't think they should have statues either.
Yeah, but a lot of them don't, and that's the whole part of it. It's his influence and his education. The schools are what determined that should be done. That those laws should be passed, and those laws survived for a long time, for almost 100 years, before there was another civil rights law that gave the laws to the people that were being oppressed in those states.
And that was very shameful of my party. I am a Democrat, and it was shameful.
Well,
totally shameful.
To me,
I have no problem saying what they did in the South for 100 years.
You might not have a problem with it, but they did. They never put that information out there. They tell people that the Democrats and the Republicans changed positions after the Civil Rights Law. That's a lie. There was always. Wait a minute. Listen to what I'm saying.
You can look at Richard Nixon's comments about the Southern Strategy.
And where did you learn that at?
You can read Lee Atwater's book.
Where did you learn that at?
I listened to the Nixon tapes between he and Haldeman. I read Lee Atwater's book when he talked about the Willie Horton ad.
Okay.
All you have to do
what law did Nixon pass to inhibit the vote of black people in the South?
What law did he pass to inhibit the vote of people in the South?
Yeah, black people.
Okay, so let's see. What did they do? Well, what he did is what they did was they worked to press votes, and I can pull up the Google.
They worked what?
Pull up and tell me what the Southern strategy is.
The Southern strategy was a position to get the electoral to win the electoral college, and to gather states and the numbers of their electoral vote. The strategy of Jim Crow was to stop black people from voting, to make them stay in their place of servitude.
Right, and so the Southern.
Now, what law did the Southern strategy have except the existing constitutional laws? And you work your strategy to try to work where you can achieve a political victory, not by changing the law and oppressing other people.
Do you want me to answer you, or are you just?
Sure, I want you to answer it. I'm asking you.
Okay.
What law did Nixon pass?
I'm looking at it right now.
Huh?
I pulled it up. I'm looking at it right now. Do you want me to answer you or not?
Sure.
Okay. So the strategy was to deepen existing racial tensions in the southern United States. Nixon and Goldwater developed strategies that contributed to the political realignment of white conservative voters in the South to the Republican Party.
What law did he pass?
Supported the Democrats.
What law?
I'm looking. Hang on.
What law?
I'm looking. Hang on. Let's see. In 2005, Republican National Committee Chairman apologized to the NAACP for exploiting racial polarization to win elections and ignoring the black vote.
What law?
I'm still looking.
What law did he do? You see, there's no law he could have passed because the Democrats had a veto power over almost every law. That and for any law that was passed, the Republicans had to do some compromise, and they had to give something to get something. And they were never allowed to pass any bill, just like what you see right now. And that was the law passed by, guess who? Robert Byrd, the filibuster law. Any law that they wanted to pass, the Democrats had to give their okay, or they would run a filibuster on it. And the Republicans tried for years to get a civil rights law passed, and it was only when Johnson got into office and he helped keep those bills, those civil rights for black people passed all of the time that he was the Senate Majority Leader. And Al Gore's dad, Al Gore Sr., Robert Byrd, Easterling of Mississippi, and look, and I'm telling you from what I know because I remember these guys. These guys had a control over that Senate that would not allow any kind of laws to be passed unless they okayed them. And through compromise, a lot of the Republicans had to go along with the Democrats, and the Civil Rights Law in 1964 would not have been passed had it not been for Everett Dirksen, where he mobilized the Republican vote, and they voted to carry that law through and make it pass in the Civil Rights Bill and for the voting rights, which the Supreme Court threw out in 1864. So what I'm telling you is that the laws in this country were up until the 64 laws were passed, there was no law passed for civil rights for black people until 64, and it was all taken out and kept out. Even the Eisenhower, the same law that Johnson passed, Eisenhower tried to pass it, and Johnson himself, well, he helped the filibuster because he was the Senate Majority Leader, and Robert Byrd and Al Gore and them ran the filibuster, and they kept that law from going. And then he turned around when he gets in the office and he passes them. So what I'm telling you is, I just want to say this. This is why I say.
Go back to my original question because you never answered it.
What?
Nathan Bedford Forrest, should his stuff still be standing? I asked you that at the beginning of my call.
If you're going to vote to get him down, I said, look, I don't think he should have a statue. But I say this: if you're going to take it down and you're going to vote, you got to have at least the education of the people and let them have honest appraisal of this guy. All you got to do is say, okay, he started the Klan, okay. And I guarantee you that the people will vote to take him down.
Yeah, I have no doubt. So if they vote to take down Robert E. Lee, that's okay too? If the people voted and they said, we want to take down all our Robert E. Lee statues, is that okay?
Sure. If that's what you want to do, that's what you but let's do an honest assessment, because they don't have an honest assessment of Robert E. Lee.
Well, sure they do. He swore an oath to protect, preserve, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And when he went and became this general of the...
He also took an oath to protect his state.
Hang on. He promised to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution against any enemies of the United States, and then he became one.
So?
So...
They're doing the same thing right now. With all of the breaking of the laws that they're doing in the South and in the North, in the Northeast, California, all of these states are breaking the same kind of laws that they broke in 1864.
None of them are taking up arms against the United States.
None of them what?
None of them are taking up arms against the United States like Robert E. Lee did.
They're using the courts.
They are not taking
they're
up
using
arms.
the courts.
There's a big difference.
But anyway, I'm going to let you think about this, and then you call back when you got a little bit more. The only thing that you can tell me is what I have no dog in the fight. I don't care whether they take the statues down or not. Only thing I'm saying to you is that they need to use the system to educate.
The statues down.
Let's tell the truth in the education system, because the Southern Democrats have taken over.
You said they should not take the statues down. That's what you said.
That's not what I said. I said not until they are properly educated. They understand who is behind the statue.
Okay, sounds good. You take care.
You too. See, that's the whole thing of it. You can. It's the difference in the thinking on the Democrat part is that they want to, whenever they get in power, they want to make laws that everybody have to comply with. But if they're not in law, then they want to break all of the laws that are there and then call you racist because you defend the law. There is no law that the Democrats right now are behind, like the sanctuary cities. That they are on the wrong side of this issue, but because they can say to you and me, "Oh, you just doing this because you don't like Mexicans," and now that says that makes the law unsavory. You don't like the law because it's favoring white people over Mexicans, and the whole thing of it is that there has never been. Derek, are you ready to take a quick break? Okay, we're going to go to break, folks. And if you'd like to get in on this conversation, that number is 734-822-1600, and we'll be right back after these messages.
This is the Abolitionists Round Table on Wham Talk 1600. Join in the conversation at 734-822-1600. And now, back to your hosts, Del and Phil.
And we are back, and one of the things that I was trying to get across is that people act as if there was no active Republican Party in the South. These people were truly abolitionists. They had an active party, and in one of the most active states where Ben Tillman was the driving force for Jim Crow and all of that. This will give you a little insight. He said that there was a deficit of vote that he was trying to overcome this is a definite number. About 3,500 votes was the difference in the majority in carrying the vote, and the black people were providing that majority, about 3,500. And once he nullified that, that's how the South was the state of South Carolina was able to become the majority, because they took the black people completely out by disenfranchising them. And you hear them always talking about, just because you want to give somebody to have a driver's license or whatever to prove who they are, they're telling you that that's doing something racist. Yeah, and so voter suppression. And they are the ones that patented the idea. And I'm gonna go, as we go along, it was a 30,000 vote majority that the blacks had that provided the Republican Party in the South the majority, and that's how they got elected into the offices. We are going to go to line number 2, and
pull your screen up so you can see who it
is. Yeah, I can't see who that is, but go ahead and put him on there, Derek.
Hello.
Okay.
Am I on? This is Buckwheat.
Buckwheat. Buckwheat.
Listen,
okay.
You all get a little heated every now and then, and I want to bring you some fresh thought.
Okay.
Hillary. We got to help Hillary. Hillary has been First Lady of a state. She's been First Lady of our nation.
Yeah.
She's been a senator. She has been a Secretary of State. She is a mother. She is a grandmother. I'd like to see her on the Supreme Court. Now, how do we do this? How do we do it? First, I guess, we have to ask her.
Yeah.
The problem is Trump, they had a couple of risks. But without Hillary, I wouldn't have known who Obama was. In the debates,
you're not joking
I learned
me, are
who
you?
he was, and same with...
You're not pulling my leg, are you?
I mean, not Bill Clinton, but Trump.
But anyway.
I wouldn't have known who Trump was. No, I don't pull your leg. I'm sincere. This is Buckwheat. I don't want to give you my name. My name for you is Buckwheat.
Buckwheat. Okay, Buckwheat. Here's how it goes.
Light. That was light. Thank you. Okay. That right there is the most ridiculous thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna entertain
now,
that.
wait a minute. Wait.
Because there was a suggestion made to that effect back before when the Clintons first got out of power and they got George Bush in. When there was talk about either Hillary or Barack Obama becoming president, there was a lot of suggestions in the liberal press that both Bill and Hillary should be considered for the Supreme Court, and they might even be considered twin appointments.
Well, now here's the thing: it can't be Bill, because women have been so discriminated against.
Okay, but that shows you the.
Now, he was raised a Republican. Listen to what I'm telling you. And as time passes through this journey, folks hold on to values. And if there is someone who knows the Constitution, it's Hillary.
Yeah, but she abuses
Sir, you are the most impressive encyclopedia of history. I am so impressed. I called because I worry a little these heated arguments. And our country doesn't need a little bit of heat right now. What we need is a little bit of cooling off. We've got a couple of heavy storms.
No, I beg to differ. We need robust argument. We need most robust debate, and we need to.
Well, where do I show up for one of these robust debates?
Well, we can't have it because it's always somebody being called a racist, and a lot of people say, "Well, I don't even want to be bothered with that anymore." But the thing about it is, we need a debate. We need to understand what direction we're trying to take this country. I see us going.
Well, we are. We're trying to take this country into no more, never, ever, ever free labor. That's a no.
Okay, well, why don't you give me a call next week, and we'll see if we can take this conversation a little further. If you'd like to join the conversation, see us next week, folks, and we'll be back. The Abolitionist Round Table invites the Wham Talk 1600 listeners to continue the roundtable discussions by mailing correspondence to Art of Michigan, Post Office Box 135, Garden City, Michigan 48135.
Or follow Phil and Del at artofmichigan.com. You can also send emails to artofmichigan@hotmail.com. And most of all, continue to listen every Saturday and tell a friend.